That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is Commissioner Cooper, and we're getting hot in the desert today. Take a dip in the Red Sea with the Arizona Cardinals. It's time for TSS Fantasy.
Yeah! It worked for The Rock, and it's going to work for me.
And you just got slandered.
That's what it is! This court is adjourned.
It is Commissioner Cooper.
Welcome to Sophistication Station.
I'm here to save your fantasy roster.
And it's time for TSS Fantasy. Let's get it on. We are in the NFC West, ladies and gentlemen, and my internet is awful. So let's get it started with the introductions. We'll start first with Justin Jesus Herrera.
Well, I mean, Jay, with all the money we're bringing in from these ads, why can't you just upgrade that internet, bro? Let's go. But I'm glad to be here. As you can see, I am shooting live on set from the Cardinals HQ right here. The burning dumpster fire. You can already kind of smell the Kyler Murray jerseys going in there. You can see the DeAndre Hopkins dolls going in there. Everything's going in that dumpster fire, and we're all ready to go here. And yeah, it looks like Jay's about to pop out. Yep, he's popping out. All right, well, I guess me and Nick will take over on this one.
All right.
First, I want to say this. Go to underdogfantasy.com, everybody. Use the word promo code TSS. Get $100 back. And guess what? Go to the prop that says the over-under on the Cardinals and pick the under. A good use of your money. And are you back, Jay?
I think so. I hope so. We shall see for how long.
Right, I'll pass it on.
But yeah, that was a great introduction, by the way. All right, let's introduce Nick. You got Flandered Macaronis.
Yeah. Hey, so to go off the dumpster fire, I was wondering what was behind you. It's quite colorful. It matches the heat in Arizona. 117 degrees today. Holy crap, those poor people. Yeah, it's not too Murray in Arizona these days. We might not see him until November. But however, we got a lot of nice guests that are going to be on tonight, giving their expert advice. Talk to them for a minute or so. They seem extremely knowledgeable, and they're ready and raring to go.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they don't like you very much now after that introduction. All right, well, don't forget, go to tssfantasy.com. Go check out our latest and greatest rankings. All of them are, like Nick says, they are always right. Use the promo code TSS with Underdog Fantasy. We'll double that deposit up to $100. Also, Jazz Sportsbooks, we will, of course, all their latest and greatest stuff that they have. Again, it's something different every week. So go check it out. Use the promo code TSS for Jazz Sportsbook. Also, if you're looking for some championship bling for your fantasy champion, go to Pro Am Belts. We got all that latest and greatest there for you. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the like, hit the comment, hit the notification bell. Little things stopping you from doing it, but big things popping for us when you do. We do appreciate you. Fellas, I'm going to bid you adieu because it's time for the doc, and I'll see you in a little bit. The doctor is in. We are hot and sweaty in the desert out here in Arizona. Welcome in, Doc, for the NFC West. And what's on the house call?
Hey, thank you very much. I want to apologize in advance to Cardinal fans. This is going to be the most brutal percent to the bench segment of the offseason. We'll start with Kyler Murray. So in week 15, he tore his left ACL and meniscus. This ended his season. As a reminder, that was December 12th, only 7 months ago. So now he's about 6 months out of surgery. After his injury, the TSS team reported that he, quote, will likely not be ready for the start of next season. Murray himself has stated his goal is to return for week 1, but we're going on the record here to say that he will not be suiting up to start this season. The Cardinals organization would be wise to start him on the IR. Now, Murray's fantasy value is predicated on his run game, which probably isn't going to be back until next season, even if he suits up to play this season. We're going to go 95% of the bench, and only 95 because we don't give 100% on this segment. 95, he'll start on the bench. James Conner. So I don't think he's played in every regular season game in any of his 6 seasons. And he's had some big ones, right? As recently as 2021, big season. But with Colt McCoy under center to start the season and a limited Murray returning, Connor's going to be heavily utilized. So plan on him missing a couple of games. We're going 90% of the bench on the heels of 95% of the bench for Kyler Murray. And lastly, Zach Ertz. So over his first 7 seasons, he missed a total of 6 games, but he's missed 12 over the last 3 seasons. During week 11 last season, he sustained that season-ending ACL and MCL injury, which he had surgery on in November. And while he's had more recovery time than Murray, Ertz is 32 years old. Reports out of Arizona are that rehab is going well, but I don't think he'll be ready for week 1. Like Connor, he's 90% of the bench.
And a couple of injured birds, indeed. All right, Doc, we appreciate you. We'll see you next time. All righty, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that will do it from the doc. We are going to bring our Arizona Cardinal fans, or excuse me, our guests into the building here. This is going to be an exciting night indeed. Let's bring them in.
Our next stop on our summer tour, we take a dip in the Red Sea. That's because it's getting hot in here for the Arizona Cardinals.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Getting hot in here indeed. Let's dip into this Red Sea. We'll start ladies first. Jackie, welcome into the studio.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and I'm reporting live in the desert. It is extremely hot.
All right. I like when we have somebody live. And yeah, I believe it is hot. We're down here in Florida. It's a little bit different heat, but still hot. Not as hot as what you guys are dealing with for sure. Joseph, welcome in. That's the cardinal rule to welcome Joseph in second. Welcome in, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be on this panel with such brilliant, intelligent, and classy people that you've invited alongside me.
Nice. All right. I love it when we hear that. Well, speaking of classy, let's go to Marcos. Welcome into the studio, friend.
Hey, it's nice to be here. And I'm also reporting from the desert. And yeah, it's really hot. I don't know if you guys were noticing all the bottles I was drinking.
Oh, yeah. Stay hydrated, friends. Absolutely. Blake, welcome into the studio, my friend.
Hey, it's good to be here. And Joe was saying he was happy to be with such classy people. Thought he'd say such as Jackie and Marcos. Oh, and then also Blake. You know, just kind of.
Oh yeah, and don't forget about Blake. Absolutely. All right. Well, we got one other guest trying to get in. He's texted me. I saw him trying to get in. Or we do have Randall Hill, for old Hurricane and Cardinal player, trying to jump in here. So we'll hopefully get him in here in a second. Let's talk about last season, right? Finished 4-13. Let's pull this Band-Aid off. 4th in the NFC West. Let's talk about the offensive stats. Points per game were 20, which made you 21st in the league. Yards per game, 323.5. That made you 22nd in the league. Passing yards per game, 213.3. That's 18th. Rush yards per game, 110.2. That made you 22nd overall in the league. Defensively, points per game, 26.4. That made you 31st. So obviously the big bugaboo defensively. Yards against, 348.9, put you 21st in the league. Passing yards, 230.3. It's made you 24th. And rush yards per game, 118.6. So there you have last season. Let's go around the room. Jackie, sum it up for me. 3 words or less last season and expand on it for me.
It was an eye-opener that what we did in the off season prior to last year was not going to work. We had doubled down and extended our coach and GM, only for them to have a complete disaster of a season. No kind of free agency moves were made. A lot of drama, a lot of turmoil happened before the start of the season. And so you get to the 2023-22 season and everything is just a complete disaster from top to bottom, all sides of the ball, leadership, coaching, general manager, you name it. It was clear that what we had was not working and something absolutely needed to change.
All right. Love it. Love the analysis and indeed definite. Joseph, what say you? 3 words or less.
Roster got Kimed. Steve Keim just really messed up this roster. There were so many issues. There were injury issues with not enough pass rush. The cornerbacks, didn't have a lot of veteran depth that you could rely on. And I think part of the problem is his draft strategy was so atypical, so unsound. Drafting, off-ball linebackers back-to-back years in the first round instead of premium positions. And when you don't nail the draft, you start trying to patch holes in free agency. The smartest organizations draft premium positions well, take advantage of the cost-controlled nature of those contracts, and re-sign and extend those core players that have been in the program. And then they use free agency to just patch holes and build some depth. But the Cardinals were going after core players in free agency. And in a salary cap league, if you've not done a good job of building your core players and you're looking for those players in free agency, they're either really expensive premium position players, or if you need to get them at a discount, you go after aging or injury prone players. And so, the roster wasn't constructed very well through the draft. And then the players that they brought in to try to patch those holes had injury histories or were old, and it all just culminated in a season that you look at and you're like, what didn't go wrong this year? The wheels completely came off. So, but to me, there's a constellation of factors, but so much of it comes back to the decisions made by Steve Keim.
Well, I mean, that was a definite mouthful, Joseph, and indeed, you're right. The wheels totally fell off. This football team, nowhere really to go other than up, really. Marcos, what say you? 3 words or less.
Terrible. That's one word, but I'm just using it in 3 parts because that's all you can pretty much explain. For one, there was nothing being. Once the NFL caught up to our offense, there was no adjustments being made on that side. I'm not talking about when it comes to the type of offense or the type of play calling. Talking about where they wanted to attack. So instead of trying to attack that middle of the field more often, trying to get more centric on a I formation, let's go ahead and get bodies on bodies, on hat on a hat on offense so that we can try to get some yardage with a running back like James Conner. We just stayed in our 5, empty field, 5 wide. Hey, let's put him in shotgun, keep him in shotgun, have him survey the field, and then attack the perimeter more often than the middle of the field. And on defense, it was just the same, just high blitz rate, bend but don't break, which I hate that type of defense. It really doesn't work, but it was just more so just hey, let's just get through the end of the season. Let's just get through the end of the season. What happens, happens. And of course, thank God Steve Keim was finally removed. It took this to finally get him off, get him out of the Cardinals.
Well, this is certainly a good reason to get him off. Blake, what say you? How terrible was the Cardinals for them? For you?
Yeah, I'm going to say try to fit a big concept into 3 words. I'm going to go with straw broke Camelback. There's a mountain out here called Camelback Mountain that's in Arizona, right in the smack dab at the center of the city. This was the culmination of, people have said, years of not drafting well, having to trade for outside veteran players. You had 3 players on the Cardinals offensive line in their 30s, not really anyone coming in to take the place of some of these aging guys. And then same on the defensive line with guys like J.J. Watt at 34 being your best player. Cardinals ended up essentially pushing so much, try to win now, and then even gave that vote of confidence with owner Michael Bidwell, handing out contracts to his head coach and his general manager after one of the worst playoff defeats that we'd seen from some time, or at least playoff efforts from the Cardinals. And then they go on and have a dragged out fight with their quarterback over whether he gets extended or not. it was a place where there was so much weight and pressure that was on this team. And I think the biggest thing that we can talk about too that hasn't been mentioned is a lot of the coaching has really struggled at times to either adapt to the players or finding guys who were the right fit. Last year, we watched Cliff Kingsbury's offense do great for the first half of the season. They lose DeAndre Hopkins, lose J.J. Watt. Anyone's going to struggle with that. But then you watch game 1 of this season against the Chiefs, and it looked like the exact same offense, the same tendencies, the same even play calls. Cardinals were 32nd ranked in outside zone this year. They just had their tendencies, and they stuck to them. There was not really that much adapting, and if you keep stacking and stacking and stacking those straws on top of the camel's back, eventually it's going to break and crumble. It just happened to do that all at once for the Cards in 2022.
Absolutely did. Totally agree. All right. Well, we talked about what was. Let's talk about what is, shall we? So in the offseason, marquee additions, there wasn't really a ton, to be honest. I mean, Kazir White, linebacker, Zach Pascal, receiver. I mean, there was I was not overly impressed with the additions they made. However, you made the point earlier about drafting well, so that's maybe where we'll look at. But subtractions: Byron Murphy, cornerback, is gone. Zach Allen, interior lineman's gone, and Chosen Anderson, of course, is gone as well. No, not a huge loss. All right, let's talk about the draft first. Tackle Paris Johnson, right? Got to shore up this offensive line. It's been a bugaboo for a little bit. So a good first pick to start off your base of your offense. Got to like it there. Edge rusher in round 2, BJ Ojulari. I hope I said that right, from LSU. Round 3, cornerback Garrett Williams, Syracuse. Round 3, Michael Wilson, receiver from Stanford. Round 4, John Gaines II from UCLA. Round 5, Clayton Tune from Houston. Wow, from Houston, Tune. I don't know. That's a great last name. Linebacker Owen Papoi from Auburn. Cornerback Trell Clark from Louisville. And another round 6, defensive lineman Dante Stills from West Virginia. All right, so let's go around the room. I'll go opposite this time. Blake, I'll start with you. Give me a prediction for this season. Tell me where those Cards are going to be at.
It's tough. It's tough to know because this is such a building everything from the ground up type of season for the Cardinals. Part of why they didn't go out and bring in a lot of additions. Interestingly enough, one of the funny things with those draft picks is they actually had to send one and swap to the Philadelphia Eagles because they've been tampering with Jonathan Gannon as far as their GM had been concerned. So you're talking about, and all this offseason controversy, not giving player meals, terrible ranking on their surveys. They have that gets thrown in there. That's why this draft was such a redeeming factor, because you look at how they've set themselves up with players that are able to fill some premium positions. Steve Keim just would draft linebackers most of the time. And you would see on the other side, at least, of them getting pass rushers, edge rushers. I think a lot of what this season is going to be about, though, is going to be tough. We don't know when Kyler Murray's going to be back, and the Cardinals kept Colt McCoy, who has only really played 2 or 3 games before leaving with injury this season. So we might see Clayton Tune actually end up playing sooner than later if he's not able to stay healthy. I think the biggest thing for Arizona this season you have to look at is, what does their 2024 look like? Do you get enough from Kyler Murray playing to say he's our quarterback? We can get a decent pull from the draft picks Cardinals acquired, the Houston Texans 2024 first rounder. And can we at least show enough fight as a team that maybe we don't win a lot of games this season, but we have a future next season? And if it does turn into moving on to a different quarterback, something that you really wouldn't talk about, is just that's kind of how decrepit this roster has been left under Steve Keim. You're kind of putting a lot of the eggs, unfortunately, into next year's basket, which means that you're hoping to see Kyler Murray come back and play well, but you're not expecting it at the same time. You're trying to be realistic about this team essentially having to kind of lay the foundation, pour the concrete before they can even start putting up walls.
Oh, I hear you, man. Absolutely. That's not a great way to go into a season, but the way you looked at it, now I'm feeling a little more positive for you guys. I like it. All right, Marcos, what say you?
Well, about going on to next season, I'm happy about the changes that we're going to bring on, especially like on both defense and offense. I'm not 100% sold that like this new type of offensive philosophy is going to be the right fit for Kyler Murray. And I get that like we need to try something different, but that we're taking somebody who's been in the system his entire career, and we're changing that all around so that we can hopefully put him more under center and have him be able to execute that like I formation wide zone scheme that like, this Kyle Shanahan type of scheme is known for. You have like moving bodies like tight ends, move fullbacks and whatnot. So you also got to implement that into a offensive system that has we haven't had a fullback since the Bruce Arians days. So we haven't even seen that type of offense since like before that. So that's going to be very interested. I'm all on the whole train of like, I don't care who's the Cardinals quarterback as long as we win. I'm always going to be the Cardinals fan first. If Kyler Murray can execute, then great. If Kyler Murray isn't going to execute, then we know the tough decision that needs to be made. But furthermore, that's just what I'm looking for on the defensive side. Like, let me just get this clear about every single draft and whatnot. It's not that like, I get Steve Keim's strategy isn't sound. I get that. Like drafting the same type of player on back to back. That's not where my criticism is about him. That he drafted these players that like, oh hey, these guys are in the first round. You don't go for that type of talent in the first round. It's how they were being utilized that was the issue with me. My issue with that was he had a defensive coordinator that seemed to only trust people who had already snaps or some veteran like just people that had years on the defense instead of trusting a rookie to take over. So why would you draft another player that your defensive coordinator is just going to put on the bench, and that's really going to bring down the value and put the blame on the player that player probably wouldn't have had if he went to another type of defense, or if he was to flourish with another team. People aren't looking at that as a big of a bust as it is for the Cardinals. That's the reason why people have that issue with the Cardinals. Like, why are you drafting first round like linebackers if you're not even going to utilize them right, if they're not going to have good careers here? So that's my issue with that. Do they have talent? Yes, I 100% believe in their talent. A linebacker can bring up a defense, sometimes even by himself, like Bobby Wagner has. The pieces around him have moved around, but he has been the stable for the Seahawks. And why? Because he can play in the slot. He can also, move people around, line them up where he needs to line them up at. They need to put him across the tight end. He'll go and cover the tight end. He'll back up into that Tampa 2 in that middle zone and make sure no crossers are like gone uncontested. So people are afraid to go over the middle when he's on point. That's the reason why he still has that longevity. And maybe to a lot of people isn't that value, but that's only one person. I mean, I know you have to build your defense with cornerback, with edge and everything, edge talent and whatnot, but the utilization is the issue, and I have confidence that that's not going to be the issue anymore with this coaching staff on both offense and on defense.
I like it. Use your guys right. That is the name of the game. I am with you totally. Joseph, what say you, my friend? Give me a prediction for this year. Where are these Cardinals going to be at?
So, I'm going to kind of build off of what Blake talked about. When you look at, you mentioned the free agency and we look at the draft and we look at what we're going to expect this year, it all has to be looked at within the context of the kind of the roster building process and where they're at. This is year one with a new regime. And when you're in that situation with having had the kind of disaster we just opined about, what you need to do is you need to sort of clear the decks. Year one is about establishing the culture and installing the offensive and defensive systems. And then it's also, though, about kind of figuring out who you need to keep on the roster and bringing in some young talent. So, for example, you looked at their free agency. They brought in Kaiser White, right? And, Zach Pascal, both players who had experience with the previous coaching staff. And another guy who's not a big name, but is kind of under the radar, an important signing is Hjalti Froholt, a center. And the reason for that is we all know how important centers are in terms of coverages on the offensive line. And, Cardinals fans, myself included, thought the Cardinals were going to draft a center. They didn't, unless, they're the guy they drafted is a guard who's going to become a center potentially. But when you have that center, Froholt, who comes from Cleveland, right, was playing in that system, and you have Kaiser White, a linebacker who was in the defense that Nick Rallis is going to be the coordinator of. Zach Pascal, who knows the coaching staff and is the kind of player they want. Those are all the kinds of players you bring in this situation. They're not players who are long-term answers. You're not committing to them long-term. So the guys you're drafting can replace them and it's not an issue. But they're guys who know the system, know the culture, and they can be sort of a bridge to doing that, right? So their free agency made a lot of sense when you look at it within that context. And then you look at the draft. I did a video a while back looking at projecting what I thought Monty Austinford's draft strategy would be based on the draft strategies of the Patriots and the Titans, more heavily looking at the Patriots, where he was the director of scouting there. And they looked at kind of values of positions in the draft, and he kind of followed that. First round you take a tackle, it's a premium position. You don't take linebackers in that round if you're going with a value-based kind of drafting. You don't, they took a interior offensive lineman on day 3, right? They took cornerbacks and receivers on day 2 and edge rushers. They took those premium positions earlier. And he found value in good players, and but also did what the Patriots do all the time, which is they like to trade back and add future draft picks, right? And add draft capital. And he did that in a deft and masterful way. So when you look at everything within that context of this is year 1 of the rebuild, you're bringing in young players that you're going to get them on the field. You've got some free agents to help bridge the culture and the system. But what that means for the product on the field is it's not going to be a good football team this year.
Okay, well, Jackie, do you have any kind of positive outlook on this team? No, I'm just playing with you. Good job, Joseph. Jackie, what do you say? Give me a prediction for this year.
Well, like we all have said, it's going to be extremely ugly. I look at this coming season as an entire season of preseason. It's not going to be a good product, but it's going to be a great opportunity to get a lot of younger players, a lot of rookies, some meaningful reps, and just it's good to kind of see who's going to buy into the team, who wants to play, who wants to be here, doesn't want to be here, who wants to put in the effort. So yeah, it's going to be pretty ugly. Free agency, a lot of people were upset that we didn't go after any big targeted names. We let some key guys go, but you really got to save some money. We're not in position to do anything this year, so why spend the money? Draft comes, we knock that out of the park. We've got a lot of draft capital going into next year, so I think that's going to be the focus. Is hey, we're not going to be good, but we potentially have 2 top 5 picks for the 2024 season. We got DeAndre Hopkins off our books. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Kyler Murray, because he does want to play. We would like to see him play because that's what we're paying him to do. But if it doesn't make sense for him to wheel him out, mid-season, if we haven't won a single game, then, so be it. I don't foresee us going with the Caleb Williams. I don't like that idea at all. I don't like trying to bring in a rookie here, because I feel like we kind of did that already with Kyler and Rosen. So it's just let's just get a guy that knows the team, has some NFL level experience, and let's just roll with it. And he's got a lot of learning and catching up to do with this new system, rehab. So I actually am looking forward to the season, just to kind of see who wants to be here, just players that can break out, make a name for themselves. And I'm really excited to see what this whole new system will look like, new coach, new GM, new everybody. It's a really refreshing restart for the team for sure.
Yeah, and it might not take long. You never know. Some teams bounce back quicker than others. I feel like Cardinals are one of those teams that always ends up reloading rather quickly, and they're all up in the mix for a little bit, and then you might not see them for a couple of years, but then they're right back in it again. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited for this team, although, like you guys, maybe not this season, and my internet is still sucking. All right, so we talked about last year. We got all depressed. It's sad. It's not the greatest outlook, right? But let's have a little fun now, all right? We're going to split the teams up. My internet is really messing up. I apologize. So we're going to split teams up. We're going to play Fantasy Feud, we're going to play Fantasy Quiz Show Cardinals edition. I can't even get my stuff straight. So we're going to do, I think on one side, let's do Jackie and Joseph, and we'll do Blake and Marcos on the other. How this game works is just like Family Feud. I'll ask you a question. Just shout out the answer. If you have the largest one with the go the higher answer, you'll win it for your team. You guys can close out the round. Obviously, every wrong answer, you get a strike. If you get 3 strikes, the other team gets a chance to steal. All right, well, here we go. Let's get it on. It's Fantasy Quiz Show.
There seems to be no sign of intelligence.
It's the Fantasy Quiz Show.
Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson. It's gonna be a long game.
Not going to be a long game tonight. We got Cardinals experts in the building. Let's start it out. Jackie and Marcos, mano y mano for the first round. We're going to go top 5 answers on the board. And again, this is going to go all-time Cardinals history, so I hope you're ready. I'm looking for your top 5 receiving touchdown leaders.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Larry Fitzgerald. Well,
are we going?
Marcos.
Are we going like 5 in a row?
You got that? No, we're going to go to your teammate next, but you got the first one correct. And Larry Fitzgerald is number 1 on the list with 121. So you have earned it for your team. Blake, you got another answer.
I'm going to go with one that I know is up there, but not maybe like the more deeper cut. I'm going to go with Anquan Bolden.
Anquan Bolden. He is on the list. He is number 5 with 44. Back to you, Marcos.
Oh, man. Ooh, this is going to be a tough one because after that, like, it really falls off.
Well, I hope your granddad watched the Cardinals.
It probably has to go back to that point. I'm just going to have to throw a name out. I don't know. Yeah, I can't. It's hard. What was that other receiver that was part of the big 3? Anquan Bolden, Larry Fitzgerald, and Steve Breaston.
Not on the list. Blake, what say you?
All right, I'm going to go with someone who I know is on the list. It's the other receiver I was hoping you'd say, which is Roy Jetstream Green is one of the other players there.
Roy Jetstream Green. Love the nickname even too. It's extra points for you, sir. He's number 2 on the list with 66. All right, Marcos, back to you.
Wow. Oh, I had to throw one out there. So this is the problem is I don't know the long tenured receivers, especially from back then. So
there's one in particular I'm thinking of, but we'll see. I may not know the top 5.
I'm just gonna throw out DeAndre Hopkins. I know he's not on the list, but I can't. I drew a blank.
D-Hop. All right. Well, there's 2 answers remaining here. It's number 3 and number 4, and you got 2 strikes. Can you get one of them?
I'm going to go with an old name because this guy has a lot of records. He's a tight end. Cardinals, Jackie Smith. Is he on the list?
Jackie Smith?
Stop it. Get some help.
No bueno for that one. Jackie and Joseph, now you can talk this over since it's the steal round. So if you guys can come with a consensus answer and steal it away.
Jackie, so, okay, I've got 2 names I'm pondering. Rob Moore is one name I'm pondering. And the other is kind of a little bit out of left field, but Larry Centers. He had a lot of receptions. I don't know that he had a ton of receiving touchdowns, but there's a volume there. So maybe, of course, Randall Hill is also a possible answer. So those are my 3 kind of that I'm pondering. What think you, Jackie?
I want to say it's Larry Centers.
We'll go with that. I'm good with that.
Listen, we're going to give you all of those answers. What do you say, Judge?
So they were all bad.
Oh.
No.
Like,
The number 3 is Sonny Randall with 60. So Sonny, whatever his nickname was, Randall. And Mel Gray is number 4 on this list with 45. I mean,
Going
that's
back
really
to the 60s and 70s now.
Are these like saying?
it's
Are these
pulling the
Chicago
weight back.
Cardinals?
Yeah, the Chicago's in there too. There's the whole history of the Cardinals was in there. So I could.
Jackie
No
Smith
wonder.
was 6th. I just looked up. I was just outside the top 5. He was 6th. So close, so close.
He's pulling out the Google machine, folks. All right, I got to switch it up on you then. Let's go Joseph and Blake for round number 2. And I'm still going to stick with all-time history, but I'm going to switch this up and go winning percentage. What I want to know is, what are the teams that you have the all-time best winning percentage against?
Oh, I'm gonna go with just bad teams that have been bad for a long time. So I'm gonna guess Tampa Bay.
The Bucks.
Recently they've been good, but no.
They're on a lot of lists, so it wasn't a bad guess, just not on this one. Blake, what do you say?
All right. I'm going to keep in mind that the Cardinals were back in a long time they were in the NFC East.
Now I will say this one, I only went with teams that are actually that are active today.
Active today? Okay, because I was going to say, I'm thinking,
Yeah,
I
I
remember
was
how they
going
were
to
in
do
the
that
NFC.
to you.
I don't know, they used to be in the NFC East, so there's not teams that are inactive. And I know out of the teams in the NFC East, the teams that used to be really good were the Dallas, New York was a good one. I know Philly had never won a championship before. Are the Philadelphia Eagles one of those teams?
The Philadelphia Eagles.
I was either them or Washington, and I decided I'd pick Eagles because we've beaten the Eagles the last few years.
They're number 5 on the list, just made the list, 59, 57, and 5. So you have taken over. Great job that for your team has got it again. Marcos, what guess do you have?
The Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bengals. Not on this list. Blake, what do you say?
I'm going to go with the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams, previously St. Louis Rams.
The Rams. This question always trips everyone up, so don't worry at all. All right, so you got a lot of meat on this bone, Marcus. You got to get a little nibble here. Get a little nibble off this bone. Let's see if you can get it. There's 32 teams. You guys guessed about 3 of them, so you got about 29 to go.
The New York Giants? Maybe?
The New York Giants. Okay, so no go for number 3 for you, my friend. All right, Jackie and Joseph, as I alluded to earlier, a lot of meat here. Can you guys take a nibble and steal this away?
Yeah, Jackie, they've actually played pretty well against Seattle over the last decade or so. Even when the Cardinals weren't great and Seattle was good, that might be a guess.
That was going to be my guess.
Okay, well then why don't we go with that? We're both on that page.
All right, the Seattle Seahawks.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Unfortunately, not for you guys tonight. Yeah, 2-0 right now. Blake and Marcos, get ready for this list, all right? This is why a little bit of education tonight. You ready? Number 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars. You guys are on the right train here. 4-2 all time against the Jags. Not impressive, but impressive enough to be 667. You know who's tied with that same winning percentage? The Tennessee Titans. You guys are 8-4 also against the Titans. Number 3, again, going down the same road, the Houston Texans. You guys are 3-2 all time against the Texans. That's a 600 winning percentage. And then number 4, the Saints. You guys are 16-15 against the Saints, believe it or not. If you don't know, now you know. We're going to go now, Jackie Marcos. Listen, Jackie, you got to get this for your squad here. You guys got to move on up. But I'm not going to make this easy on you, though, because we're in the nitty-gritty. I'm going to stay with winning percentages, but I'm going to go the opposite end. I want to know the teams you have the worst winning percentages against.
San Francisco 49ers.
The 49ers.
Dang.
No go there. Marcos, how about you?
The Carolina Panthers.
The Panthers. Okay, Jackie, back to you. We might be getting the OT rules in a minute. Let's see. Jackie, what's your guess?
Dallas Cowboys.
The Cowboys. No Cowboys on the list here. Marcos, what do you say?
Just trying to think about teams we just can't beat, and that was my one.
I think I can think of one. I can think of one too. I can think of one.
Don't worry, Blake.
Yeah,
we'll
just ones that we
I'm
struggle
not
with.
going to give any help.
Maybe maybe the Detroit Lions. We've lost tons of times to them.
The Detroit Lions. All right. Well, since we haven't gotten a guess, this is when we get into OT rules. So basically how this works now is that Jackie we'll start with you again, and we'll go back to Marcos, and then we'll start to go back through the partners. That's how we'll work it. Whoever gets it first, you guys we'll end it, and the other team will get one chance to get higher than you unless you get the number one answer overall. So Jackie, what guess do you have?
Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Steelers. Marcos?
The Rams.
The Rams. This always trips people up. Gotta love it. Joseph?
The Patriots.
The Patriots. Another team that's been on a lot of lists on this end, so good guess indeed. Blake, what say you?
I'm thinking of like newer teams that you talked about at least for some. I'm gonna say Baltimore Ravens at least. I think the Baltimore Ravens they haven't won games against.
The Ravens. So
good answer.
Ravens are on this list. You are 2-5 all time against the Patriots. That puts them in at number 5. So Jackie, you get one chance here to keep yourself in this game. There's a lot of meat that you can get 1, 2, 3, or 4. Let's hear what you got.
Kansas City Chiefs.
The Kansas City Chiefs. Jackie keeps them in the game. The Chiefs are number 3 on this list. 3-10-1 all time against the Chiefs. Number 1 on this list, the Denver Broncos. You guys are 1-10-1 against the Broncos. Ugh. Number 2, it's America's team, the Miami Dolphins. You guys are 3-10 against the Dolphins. Chargers come in at number 4 at 4-11. That's a 267 average. So great job, Jackie. Keep you guys in it. Joseph and Blake, let's get it on. It's 2-1. We're going into round number 4. We're going back to all-time history, and I want to know top 5 answers on the board. Who are your rush TD leaders?
Ooh, rushing TD. Edger and James.
Edger and James. Not on the list, crazy enough. Blake?
Is Charlie Trippy on the list?
Charlie Trippy?
We're going way back. Now, this is like a 1950s like type of guy, at least. I'm trying to think of these old guys when they just did nothing but run the football.
There's 5 of them here, so let's see. All right, I'm not gonna. You almost got me giving stuff away. All right, Joseph, what'd you say?
How about Kyler Murray?
Kyler Murray. Feel like he should be on that list. All right, Blake, what say you? If we don't get it, we're going OT.
Okay, there's 2 running backs that they drafted really highly that left. One was Larry Johnson, but I'm going to go with Garrison Hurst.
Garrison Hurst. All right, we're on OT. Joseph, what say you?
Stump Mitchell.
Ooh, I think that one's on there.
Mitchell. Every time we go to OT, the team that gets it right gets the number 5 answer on here. It's number 5, Stump Mitchell with 32. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Blake. I got to go to Marcos because we're going to the other team now. Marcos, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Can you name one of those Brush TD leaders?
David Johnson.
David Johnson. Was waiting for that one in his back pocket. Great job. He's actually number 4 on the list with 33. Number 1, Otis Anderson, 46 TDs. Number 2, Wayne Morris with 37. And number 3, John David Crow. He comes in with 33 at 3. So there's your list. If you don't know, now you know. Congratulations, Marcos. Great job there. He snagged it for you and Blake. You guys are tonight's winners.
Woohoo.
I mean,
No bonus.
we really have.
Oh, something's going on in the back there. I think I got to fire my guy here. Let's do it again.
Holy hallelujah, we've done it.
Blake was so excited, he knocked himself off the internet. He was so excited to win.
I got played off like the Oscars, like they just kind of yanked me off.
Jackie and Joseph, I apologize, but it is tradition on our show when we have winners, we do have some losers.
Dumbass. Thank these. They call me dumbass. Stupid.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Fun game all the way around, guys. We appreciate you. Hope you guys had a good time, at least and learned a little something about Cardinals history. Let's go to Jackie first. Where can we follow, subscribe, get all your great content?
So you can follow me on Twitter at jsandiego and also the Arizona Sports Underground, where I do Cardinals podcasting and writing.
Where in the world is Jay San Diego? You're probably like, oh my God, that's like totally old and you're showing your age. Joseph, welcome in. You tell us where we can follow, subscribe, get all your great content, sir.
Well, on Twitter, at least so long as it still exists, you can find me at Jokomo13, as you see there. And on the YouTube, at The Cardinal Rule, that's kind of my main platform. And then also, along with Jackie and Marcos, you can find me doing stuff with AZ Sports Underground.
Awesome. We'll make sure we get all of your great content for the season coming up. Blake, where can we follow, subscribe, get your great stuff, sir?
Yeah, writing with Revenge of the Birds. Also, you can find me with the Redbird Reboot podcast, which are kind of rebooting the podcast that I've been having for the last few years. Should be a lot of fun. And find me on Twitter at BlakeMurphy7. I think there's also Threads or something like that. I wasn't thready for another social media network, is like what I joked about, but apparently it's out there.
He's rebooting just like the Cardinals are rebooting. How ironic. Let's go to Marcos. Where can we follow, subscribe, get your great stuff, sir?
You can follow me at Pancake Soul on Twitter. Make sure that you have the S and the S in the middle, not all together. And I'm an AZ Sports Underground contributor, so you can find articles there and hopefully get into podcasting soon. But for the meantime, you can follow me on my Twitter through my Twitter handle.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, we appreciate you having you on. Great guest tonight. So we hope you do get into podcasting. All right. If you guys want to stick around, please do. We're going to do a fantasy focus on the Cardinals. If you got to take off, that's cool. We're going to take a quick commercial break. If you do take off, want to say thank you and good luck to your Cardinals this season. We appreciate you. We'll be back.
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way to win. No team management, no trades, no waivers. It's their biggest contest ever and it has only gotten bigger. You simply have to sit and win. You don't even have to set your lineup. Always get your best score every week. Just enter a contest, draft your team, and Underdog will do the rest. What could make this even better? How about free money, up to $100 using our exclusive promo code? Go online now and use the promo code TSS to double your deposit up to $100. You tell them Gingerbread sent you. Good girl.
All right. Well, let's get it on. It's time to a little fantasy focus on the Cardinals. All right, well, we like to start, of course, our fantasy focus with the QB position. But to be quite frank, after we were talking here tonight, it's like, why do I have Kyler Murray so high when we don't even know if he'll even play the season with him? Now, again, all reports are he's going to be somewhat ready to go. But, you know, again, it's ACL injury. Doc's talked about it quite extensively for running backs. Not quite the same when you're back on the field running. And it just makes sense. You've had an injury, a major injury to your knee, and it's, you know, the stability of these big men running around and diving at your leg. It makes you worry. I mean, it just makes sense, right? So, again, that's a lot where his offense is predicated on him running a lot. He's got a great arm, of course, but, you know, does he rush back, you know, with this team struggling as it is? That's going to be a big question mark. So I need to reevaluate, to be honest with you, where I got Kyler Murray this season. But let's kick it around the room. We're going to talk to Nick first. Let's go to you since you're in the back. What do you say about Kyler?
I think Kyler is a great player. He just right now, he's just in a bad situation, given the injury. And given the state of the organization, but just based on skill, I have him ranked at 20th, and our good friends over at Fantasy Pros have him ranked at 24th. So that's probably right where you're going to get him. You could probably get him, take a flyer. You know, whoever heard of taking a flyer on Kyler Murray on late rounds, because given the fact that, you know, he might not be back until the end of October and November. And then by that time, what's the state of the team going to be? Are they going to be above around 500, or where are they going to be? So it's going to be caution. Approach with caution.
Yes, sir. Caution indeed. All right. Well, let's go to Justin. I have him 19th, actually, but that's why as I started talking, I was like, maybe I need to really evaluate where I am. Justin, what say you, friend?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Nick. That's why I have him 32nd. And it's not the talent. The talent is obviously there. It's the fact that he's going to be missing a good chunk of games. Like Nick said, where is the status of the organization going to be? Are they going to want to throw him out there right away? Are they going to say, no, man, heal up completely, and we'll take this over next year with our draft class where we're going to have 2 bona fide top 5 picks? Just from an organizational standpoint, I would understand them totally giving him kind of like a bench year or a redshirt year just to kind of make sure you're 1,000% ready to go for the next season. But obviously, that's probably not going to happen. I imagine they'll probably try and get him out there around week 8. And then from week 8 on, that's only half the season. So that's where I'm kind of assuming it's going to be 32. Just from stat wise, I don't think he's going to be running the ball nearly as much, like Coop said. And, you know, this team is kind of depleted of weapons. So it's going to be really tough for him to be born on top 20 performances or even, you know, top 25 performances with all those things going against him.
Got you. All right, listen. I got to interrupt this little flow here for a second. Randall Hill finally got in. I finally see him in the back now. I was like, I meant to bring him in. He says he's been waiting so long. I feel so bad. Let's bring in Randall, the Thrill Hill. Welcome in to the studio, my friend.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you being here. It's funny, and I saw you on Facebook, and I noticed you had said working for Department of Homeland Security. The one question I had about that for you was, did you ever have to chase anyone down? Because I was thinking when I first saw that, because if you did, it was over real quick, I bet.
No, I'm a little bit older now, so I write for a living. You can run away from me, but you can't outrun my pen and my reports. So I don't chase anybody anymore.
That's awesome. All right,
we're talking
about
football Homeland Security tournaments where they're just like itching to get you on the squad, huh?
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. No way. No way. You know, I had fun when I was playing the game, but you know, the way I look at life is, you know, football is an opportunity, and the NFL is an opportunity to give you a jump start on life. But you have to move on, and you know, you some legends just fade off into the sunset.
Well, you're brightening up our set, so we appreciate you being here, my friend. We're talking about Kyler Murray right now. We're talking about we're doing a fantasy focus on Kyler Murray, kind of talking about him and what his expectations are. Joseph, I'll go to you, and then we'll get into Randall. Where do you feel Kyler is this season? Where do you have him at?
So, you know, if you're talking about, you know, obviously a season-long draft league, the reason you would take someone like Kyler Murray in the situation he's in right now is to hold on to him on your bench and hope that he's going to elevate your team, you know, down the stretch. And, you know, when you're doing that, though, you're looking at a position quarterback that, unless you're in a 2-quarterback league, you know, there's just so much depth at the position. So, you know, as much as I love Kyler Murray, and I'm a huge Cardinals fan, always have been, I'm not likely going to draft him to stash him there. I'd rather use that spot for like a running back kind of lottery ticket and go with a more sure bet thing. And then, you know, if you are, though, going to go with Murray and stash him and hope that he elevates your team down the stretch, one of the things that, you know, Dr. Miller discussed is that the running takes longer to get back, right? You know, the recovery time on ACL injuries is minimum 6 months, but it can be longer depending on milestones. But even at that, what they often say is it's the second year back when you're really up to speed in terms of your running. Now, Kyler Murray has great arm talent, so I don't want to, you know, kind of go with some sort of stereotype that he's a you know, running back or, you know, quarterback who can only run. He has the arm talent to make all the plays, but part of what elevates his floor and makes his ceiling so high is the running ability. And if I'm stashing someone to kind of, you know, salvage my fantasy year down the stretch, as much as I love Kyler Murray, I think he's capable of doing that. Just the odds say that the running isn't going to quite be there like it normally has been and like it will be next year. So I'm probably not going to dedicate a roster spot to having him sitting there for 8 weeks or what have you, when I could use that spot for, like I said, kind of a running back lottery ticket.
Indeed. Blake, what do you say about Kyler?
Yeah, I agree. It's not just the ACL, but there was meniscus tear, I know, that went into it too. When you look at quarterbacks statistically who have an ACL tear and then look at their following seasons, I put together like the last 12 years looking at a lot of different quarterbacks who, which included some guys like Joe Burrow, Carson Palmer, who didn't run a lot. There were some guys who did, like RG3. And the one thing that really stood out was that the quarterbacks who did well when they came back, their passing yards went up. But the issue, of course, with the Cardinals trading away DeAndre Hopkins is when you look at Kyler as a runner, all of those quarterbacks lost at least 1 yard per attempt of rushing, which means that you probably look at if you attempt 63 for, like, say, 700 yards with Kyler, you're going to be then chopping down not just the attempts, but also how much he gets on each of those. Sacks and interceptions also went up. So depending on the league you're in, I think it depends situationally. If you're in a spot where your choice is I get to pick a rookie quarterback or a Kyler Murray as a lottery ticket, and I feel pretty confident about my starter, then maybe you could end up taking him for one of those reasons and see where it goes late in the season. But most likely he's going to probably not end up being drafted by many people unless we start hearing more and more news down the stretch that he's going to be back sooner than we think. If he's not going to be back, I think by this week 6 to week 10 time frame, then you're going to start wondering if it is going to be shutting him down for the season. That's going to be a concern because this Cardinals defense, the upside for the quarterback is they're not going to be great. You're going to get a lot of garbage yards, a lot of points potentially from throwing the ball a ton. I'm just not sure that it's going to be that good at fantasy producing overall, even when Kyler comes back and is able to play.
Great point on the defense, adding that little bit of oomph to that QB spot.
I've got him at 26. 26 was my ranking, actually. I was going to say I have him 26.
Nice. Mr. Hill, what do you think about Kyler's prospects this year going into this season?
So I'm a realist, and one of the things that I look at with not just Kyler Murray, but just with players in general. And I was on I was listening to your broadcast. I was on for about 45 minutes, and you have a crew here of very intelligent individuals. The only thing that this crew that I really do like that are commenting here that you have not talked about is one of the things that Jimmy Johnson taught me at the University of Miami and the Miami Dolphins. You have to always factor in intangibles. And no one here has mentioned intangibles. And I'll tell you a quick story, and then I'll get on to Kyler Murray. So in college one year, we were getting ready to go play the Cincinnati Bearcats, and it was inside. And so we were playing in a dome. And Jimmy Johnson, he yelled at us and made sure that we packed our rain cleats. And everyone's looking at each other like, okay, this guy's crazy, right? He wants us to pack our rain cleats on the inside. We're playing the inside in a dome. And Jimmy Johnson said, you have to be prepared for all the intangibles just in case the dome breaks and it starts raining. I want to be prepared. So that's a true story. So someone like a Kyler Murray, I don't necessarily think that he has the intangibles to take the team over the edge. I don't see the old school players is he comparable to an Elway? Is he comparable to a Marino? Even now, is he comparable to a Josh Allen? And even a Tua at this particular point. So I don't know, and I don't really get into fantasy football. Maybe I'm too busy in the real world, being a federal agent, trying to save the world like a superhero. I am them. I am they. I'm a figment of your imagination and dismissed as so. I'm a man in black. I don't know. I have not scratched him on my card or off my card. He still hasn't showed me enough yet.
All right. I think for the rest of the show, we'll call him Mr. H instead.
Agent H.
Hey, there it is. All right, let's get it. Let's go on to the running back position. Look, James Conner. When the guy's healthy, he's money, right? Especially the one season he had a couple seasons ago where he was a touchdown magnet. All he could do is get in the end zone. This year, Dr. Miller talked about it earlier on his segment when we did the percent to the bench. They are going to rely heavily on James Conner, period. So for his fantasy perspective, he is good because you will get volume. However, with this offense struggling the way it might not be that great for your prospects either. Right now, I got him 24th. He's, to me, an RB2. Possible if this offense gets a little flavor to it, he could get up to an RB1, but I don't see it. Keontae Ingram and Corey Clement are back there for your handcuffs. Nick, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm not worried about Clement and Keontae. I'm not worried about that.
Handcuffs.
Right, exactly. The problem with James Conner is he's either touchdown or bust. He'll get you 12 points a game, but that either could be 60 yards and no touchdown, or just a touchdown in the end zone. That's the thing with him. Loved him whenever he came out of college in Pitt and he played for the Steelers, but it just seems like he had that one peak season thereafter, and then his durability isn't always. It's an issue with him. So again, I also have him ranked at at 24th. He's going to be either a low-end flex play. You can't count on him to be like your hero back. And I would also rely him heavily on a DFS matchup.
All right, I like you. Let's go, Justin. What say you, my friend?
Yeah, so I like James Conner. He's 26 for me, but there's specific places where you can get him, and he's going to be a gold mine for you because he's going to be somebody who's going to get you 200 plus touches no matter what. Last year when they switched off of Kyler Murray and their offense went towards more heavy of passing game in the second half, he actually surprised and was averaging about 7 targets a game. So for losing touches because you're down by a lot of points going into the second half, he made up for it in the passing game. So when I look at that, I go, he's always going to get his touches. He's going to be a focal point of this offense. Nick's right. He has durability issues, but who else are you going to put your money on in this offense? I mean, I wouldn't do it with Keontae Ingram. They ran Eno Benjamin out of town. Freaking Hollywood Brown's great, but you got to get him the ball first. So the way I look at it, James Conner could surprisingly be the pass catching back that you want to get this year. Just crazy enough to say, but I think that he'll be in for a good season regardless of how his team finishes.
Well, all fair points. Blake, what do you say, my friend? How do you like James Conner this season?
Muted.
I was even checking to make sure that I was unmuted there, and he lost his internet. So I feel like I just kicked him off now. So that's unfortunate. With James Conner, I like the idea of seeing is that his highest end will be our running back too. I agree that I think he could be maybe sneak into that top 20 if things go right as far as touchdowns are concerned. There's not a lot of guys who've had NFL snaps behind him, just not a lot of experience. And we all know that James Conner, one of the biggest things about him is he's got a lot of heart. Went out there and not only beat cancer, but after having a lot of injuries with the Steelers, came back and had a career year with the Cardinals. I think that's probably his highest upside. We also know the Cardinals are going to run the ball more likely with this new staff. They've got a wide receivers coach from the Cleveland Browns, going to probably be running that Browns offense that we got to see for a number of years. And we saw how that treated Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I do wonder if what could limit him potentially is, like you said, not just injury concerns, but if the Cardinals run the ball more, will that mean they give James Conner more touches, or will that mean more running backs will actually get the ball more? The only other back on that team that really seems to have a lot of size is going to be Keontae Ingram, who's a 6th round pick. It does feel really much like this is kind of a little bit of, like you said, a boom or a bust. I would say that maybe you get lucky and get that RB2 at the high end. But if he ends up being more of a flex play overall, at least, maybe he's more of a top 32 level back because they hand the ball off to other guys, that would be his low end. So I think he goes somewhere in the middle with him. You'll probably be pretty happy, at least overall, if you're able to get him there, not too high and not too low.
All right, I like it, and I'm back, thankfully. Joseph, what do you say, my friend? What do you got these running backs at?
So I love James Conner. I love his skill set. He's so good as a bruising back, but as a big back, people might assume he's not good catching the ball, but he actually does a really good job catching the ball. And I love him as a player, as a person, and I love the skill set. The one concern I have actually has to do with the scheme. They're going to be running sort of an outside wide zone, kind of the Stefanski branch of the Shanahan tree, so to speak, is likely what they're going to be doing. And, maybe he will do really well in that. And, no team runs just one type of play. So when they run inside zone and kind of stuff that's a little more power, he's going to do a good job. But a name we've kind of brushed past, Keontae Ingram, might actually be a better fit for that outside zone. Brett Coleman compared him to Kareem Hunt coming out in the draft in terms of his play style, not necessarily saying he was that level of player. But I have to wonder if Keontae Ingram is going to be a better fit for that outside wide zone, kind of that one cut style where you're kind of following the blocks, watching for the daylight, and then taking a cut upfield. So, when I look at the Cardinals, there's just not really many players I'm taking early because of all the things we talked about. I'm looking for lottery tickets, right? And Keontae Ingram in the late rounds as a player who potentially fits this running scheme, as a guy who's playing behind a running back in James Conner who has had injuries, is a play. And considering they didn't draft a running back, right? They didn't go bring someone in, that tells you they want to see what they've got with their guys. So if I'm drafting late, Keontae Ingram's there in the 12th, 13th, 14th round, I'm looking for a running back that's a lottery ticket. I'm going to consider Keontae Ingram at that point.
All right, Agent H, I know you don't play fantasy, but let's talk about what you think from their perspective. What you think of James Conner, just performance this year? How do you think he'll do?
Well, first of all, I think it's rude that you make me go behind the professor there. He looks like a professor, and he knows exactly what he's talking about.
That's what I do for the day job. I really am. I'm a sociology professor, no lie.
Well, you know what? Sociology was my major in college.
I knew I liked you.
So I like Conner because he's not just like a grueling back. I like him in space. Someone also mentioned about getting him out, getting the ball in his hands as a dual threat, so he can catch the ball. I always like having, and someone earlier mentioned Larry Sanders. Larry Sanders was very good with catching the ball out of the backfield. You take a good running back and you put him, you flex him out, and or you put him in a slot position, and you have him go up against any one of the safeties. I'll bet on that running back any day. So I like Conner, and I like what he can do as a dual threat.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, let's talk about the receivers. Look, I mean, the bottom line is you can call him Marquise, your brother. You can call him Hollywood Brown. Call him money when it matters. He's been great, whoever the QB is. So I like Hollywood Brown going into the season, just depending, of course, however, on who's going to eventually stay in at quarterback to get him the ball. So we'll see how that plays out. I have him right now ranked 30th. So that's where I got him ranked. Rondell Moore, 66 right now. We'll see. Greg Zorch showed some promise. This is all predicated on who's throwing that football. Is it a lot of volume from Kyler Murray, for example? That'll feed some of these receivers. If we got Colt McCoy, who knows what we're going to see. So, again, a little bit of prognostication in this, but what the hell do we know, right? Nick, let's go with you. Do you like any of these guys?
I do, if Kyler Murray was healthy, and I would like them a lot better if they weren't playing in front of the 31st ranked offensive line. Because if you can't block, you can't run, you can't throw. So I think with all that combined, a lot of these receivers, talented as they may be, they're going to take a step back because Murray's hurt. Then next up is Colt McCoy. I can't remember the last time he even played a full NFL season due to him being a backup and because he gets injured. So, again, I'm not going to target any of these wide receivers. If they're there and they happen to be the best player in that spot, I will draft them. But I will not look to say, okay, to fill out my roster, I'm going to pick Hollywood Brown because he also underperformed when he was in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. So he's had great talent and great hype coming out, but he hasn't performed up to his billing, and that's what scares me about Hollywood Brown.
All right, some great analysis there. Nick, what do you say, Justin?
Yeah, so I like him for what it's worth. I mean, he's going out of value right now, so that's kind of what you got to really look at it as. If you're getting your wide receiver 3 or 4 and he's the wide receiver 1 on that team, then you're booking in 100 targets for a flex guy, that's pretty awesome. That's kind of what you want. That's a perfect world right there where they 100 quality targets. It's up and down. But I'll tell you what, if this guy's getting 10 targets a game, then there's a good chance that you can bring down at least 5 of them and put some yardage on it and maybe a touchdown. So I'll take him at his current value. My current valuation of him is about 35. So right about the end of the wide receiver 3 range. This offense it's going to be interesting because I actually think Clayton Tune's going to have a big role in this offense if it's prolonged to about week 8. I don't think Colt McCoy can hold up this team for that long. I think they'd rather, give it a shot to the young kid from Houston who threw 40 touchdowns last year in a high octane offense. So it's going to be interesting to see who's playing quarterback. Rondale Moore is somebody I've been burned by the past 2 years and I want no part of anymore. And then Greg Dortch. I liked what he did last year, but that was with Kyler Murray. So I am going to be on the wait and see with Greg Dortch. Then anybody else, maybe Michael Wilson. Maybe Michael Wilson because he might fit into that DeAndre Hopkins role.
Let me not be a rude host and be rude to Agent H because we got a real receiver in the building tonight. Let us know what you think of these receivers, my friend.
I haven't really paid too much attention to him, but I was looking. I did look at some of Hollywood Brown's stats, and in a situation like this, especially when you have uncertainty at the quarterback position, somebody needs to break out. Somebody probably will break out, and if anybody would be that guy, it would be Hollywood Brown because teams are not going to play him like he's a number one receiver. He only has 700-800 yards last year, so he may be able to sneak in there and have a couple of big plays and get more targets. But it all depends on the quarterback situation, which you guys have talked about a lot. So what we're going to just say right now, and the professor would agree with me that. Arizona Cardinals have family deviant behavior right now, so they'll figure it out.
Nice little criminology in there.
I love it. Blake, what do you say, friend?
The biggest thing is it's so unknown. Hollywood Brown is a guy who, if you look at his first 6 games he played with Kyler Murray, he was getting 10 targets a game on average and getting, I think, at least 3 touchdowns or so. That was a case with Kyler Murray. We don't know when Kyler plays. I think that Hollywood, like you said, you're looking at a guy who you want to draft in the wide receiver 3 range and hope you luck into him being a wide receiver 2 where he's able to be that kind of reliable main receiver for them. Like you said, if Rondale Moore could play the Minnesota Vikings every single game, he'd probably be the greatest fantasy star ever. He gets hundreds of yards against them, but he then gets hurt, and you're then having to rely on someone like a Greg Dortch. I do agree that the one that would be maybe the sleeper that you could look at least would be Michael Wilson because he's got size. They've at least liked him. He's been at least impressive so far in camp. He's got that fit. I just think that it's going to be probably Zach Pascal who starts the season at least in that spot because he knows the coaching staff will be able to at least trust him, know what he's capable of. It really is kind of a toss-up as well because I think you may want to look at the tight end options because I think the Cardinals are going to run the ball more, have more tight end possibility, and maybe more involvement than we've seen, such as in the Cliff Kingsbury offense in the blocking game and maybe even passing game.
Let me jump back in here real quick.
You want to get back in?
Yeah, real quick. One of the things because this is honestly, you guys are a really good group, and you know what you're talking about. So with the receiver position, especially with an uncertainty in the quarterback position, which one of these receivers are going to be? Somebody got a killer. Which one of these receivers will be able to bring that rack and or yak to the offense, not just catching the ball and going down, but actually getting those extra yards. I can't answer that question. I just want to know which one of you guys think that receiver is going to be who's going to help, the quarterback position by the yak and rack.
Yeah, that's a great question and point. I will say, in terms of yards after catch, Rondale Moore is like a running back with the ball in his hands. His elusiveness is amazing. The problem has been the injuries, and probably some of that is some of the strain and tension from those cuts. When you move that quickly, it puts extra strain on those muscles, torque. But Hollywood Brown is the guy. I watched, obviously all of his games last year, and I think the impression people have of him is he's just a guy who gets, over the top of the defense, and it's all or nothing. But he had a lot of games where he had multiple receptions, short, medium, and long. and was really effective. He played in 12 games, had 67 receptions, 709 yards, 3 touchdowns. I extrapolated that if he had played all 17 games, and that projects out to 94 receptions, 1,004 yards, 4 touchdowns, which is a solid season. Like, he was not just the guy who's going to get 60 receptions and 7 deep touchdowns that you think of, right? So he's more, he's not a position receiver, but he can get those shorter catches more than people think, because I think there's a stereotype of him as that burner, which he's capable of. But I do think he's the guy who can take the top off the defense. I think he's a guy they're going to look to as long as he's healthy. In a video with Jonathan Gannon when he first met Rondale Moore in a weird kind of cringy thing, he's like, rockets. If you haven't seen the clip, it's funny. But he was talking about Rondale Moore's speed. And Rondale Moore was used as a gadget player last year. Like, everything was behind the line of scrimmage for the last couple of years. And people were, Cardinals fans, myself included, were frustrated because we know how fast he is. Right. And I think this coaching staff wants to get him deep as well. And then I just want to add, Michael Wilson, everyone's talked about, and I think he could be like the steal of the draft. He had some injuries which hurt his performance. They were mostly bone injuries, which, they weren't soft tissue injuries. So there's a hope that they're not going to be like, lingering hamstring problems. But he's a guy that, if you're in a keeper league, he's a guy I'm looking at, because, like, in terms of his ability to run routes and get separation and his body style, like, his physical comp and his play style comp is Devontae Adams in terms of how he looks and plays. Now, again, not saying he's that good of a player, but his ability to get separation as a little bit bigger receiver, and Jim Nagy at the Senior Bowl sent out a tweet showing clips of him getting open and getting separation. He's a guy that could become that X receiver, replacing Hopkins. And like Blake said, he's been getting rave reviews. So again, I'm looking for lottery tickets with this team because they're in a reset, right? You don't have consistent performers. Maybe Hollywood Brown, if he slides because the national narrative is down on him, you might get him later. So I'd take him then, but I'm not taking him early. But as lottery tickets go, I'm going to look at Michael Wilson.
Interesting.
And Blake laid it out perfectly to transition, because let's talk about these tight ends. And we'll wrap it up also with the defense, because quite frankly, fantasy purposes, there's no way I'm drafting the Cardinals, and I don't see a game I would even stream them over another defense. So we can wrap that up real quick. But with the tight end position, this is interesting because this injury with Zach Ertz, again, same thing, like coming back from this ACL, he's older. Dr. Miller talked about it earlier. The age is obviously the difference with coming back with this. So enter Trey McBride, who was drafted last season, a lot of prospects, but when he played last year, was okay at times. But again, we're going to go back to what we said earlier, all predicated on who throws this football. So again, Trey McBride seems to be a good guy dynasty-wise to maybe snag. Zach Ertz this season, too much question marks going in with his age and the injury coming in, and see how long it's going to take him to get back in. So be honest with you, that's the only way I'm really looking at Trey McBride right now, is in those more dynasty formats. That's where I see him. There's really, you could take a flyer on Zach and then him come back. But again, who's throwing the football? Nick, what do you say?
Yeah, I pretty much concur with everything that you said. Me, Zach Ertz is an old sentimental favorite of mine. Wish he would have never left Philly, but then we wouldn't have Goddard. We talk about it almost every night on the show. Rookie tight ends don't really do anything until like year 2 or 3 anyway. So this is going to be the year where Ertz steps back, and then McBride takes a step up. They might even want to consider it. I don't know exactly who's running the offense, and I don't know how much control Gannon's going to give, but they might want to think about in some sets running a double tight end set like New England did, because of the lack of wide receiver depth and quarterback depth, and of course the O-line. So they got to, instead of going to the 5-7 drops, you need to go to a 3-step drop, fire it out, and when he's healthy, Ertz could get your yak. I mean, is he the Ertz of 26, 27? No, but every dog has his day, and he can have a couple of good games. So there's guys that are going to be your late round. Let me see if he's available draft, or wait and pick him up on the wire or a DFS option.
Justin, what do you say?
Yeah, so I agree with Nick. I think that they would be best benefited to bring in all of their weapons as much as possible. I do think that Trey McBride is a talented individual. He was, in my opinion, the best guy for being able to put it all together as far as a blocker and a pass catcher out of last year's class. He didn't see the field because Zach Ertz was there, but this year could obviously open the door for him. He's a 3-down type of guy, so he's never going to leave the field. The biggest problem is that this offense may not score a lot of points. So you're kind of looking at it from the spectrum of, do I really want to draft Arizona Cardinals tight end? He's probably going to be like the second or third guy on this team as far as targets goes, considering Connor and Hollywood Brown. And then, you kind of dig into it so you can look at both sides of the coin. It doesn't take much to make it as a tight end. So if I'm anybody drafting right now and I have something like a tight end premium league, I'll go out and draft him just for the hell of it, just to have a third or fourth tight end on my squad. If you're just drafting single redrafts and you don't really need too many tight ends on your team, just leave him on the waiver wire. When he impresses you, pick him up.
Indeed. All right, Agent H, what do you think of these two big boys? You like any of the tight ends from Arizona this year?
So I'm not familiar with them, but the gentleman right above me, he made a very, very, very valid point. When you talk about bringing two tight ends in, and the Patriots did that, and I want to say some years ago, there's several other teams did that. I want to say it was Washington Redskins, maybe. I can't recall, but when a team is putting in their defensive game plan, that gives them a lot to think about, because if you have two tight ends that are in a game, now you have to worry about, like I said before, a dual threat. You have to worry about blocking with a run game and tight ends. And the thing about tight ends, yeah, they're not receivers, but if you can get them in the very short and intermediate routes, for a tight end in the NFL, that is like a handoff. So if you can't hand the ball off to the tight end, that is a damn problem. So yeah, I like that idea with the two tight ends. New England was very successful with it, even though one guy went crazy and ended up killing himself. However, I think that is something. And you know what? And I'm saying that, and look who the hell said that. I'm a wide receiver. You're taking a receiver out of the game, possibly. But I do like that. Stop laughing at me. I do like that idea with two tight ends. And I didn't think about that until you said that. So whenever somebody else calls me out to talk about football and tight ends, I'm going to steal your thunder. And if you say it was you who did it, I will make you disappear, because I am a federal agent.
This is the first time Nick has gotten a take. Someone's been impressed with Nick's take. I can't even believe it. Unbelievable.
You hear that, Nick? The Men in Black are coming for you.
I am Mr. Nobody. I am Mr. Nobody.
Yeah, trust me, Agent H. He is definitely a nobody. All right, Blake, let's go to you, my friend. What do you say?
Yeah, I do think that, like you said, one of the things I would expect from the Cardinals this year is I do think we're going to see a lot more 12 personnel, a lot more two tight ends on the field. I thought we were going to get this last year. It's like, oh, this is great. Cardinals are drafting. They're going to have Zach Ertz and get a guy in Trey McBride on the field. And then you watch Cliff Kingsbury just kind of run a lot of the receivers out there, and you're like, okay, this is not exactly what I think the Cardinals needed to adjust. As a result, I think then you kind of have a question. Are you going to look at taking like these late lottery tickets? Like we're talking about the Noah Fant. You're talking about more of like a Dalton Kincaid as a rookie. Maybe you're saying, hey, I could say I grab an Isaiah Likely later. Maybe that ends up being a guy who takes on a bigger role. I do think that people are a little too low on Trey McBride right now, because I think that when you're talking about if the Cardinals are going to have more 2 tight end sets, you're talking about a guy who doesn't leave the field, stays on, and you talk about Zach Ertz having an injury issue. The last 7 games that he played, Trey McBride got about 5 targets per game. And this is as a rookie that you're talking about being able to like kind of getting it at the end of the year. I think that there's a good chance that if he keeps up with those 5 targets a game or so, and you're saying that he doesn't come off the field, you may be seeing the touchdowns incrementally increase. You may end up seeing some more of the other plays that were there. I do think that right now, I think that he's got a chance to be able to sneak up higher than his ranking. I don't know how high, because I think the Cardinals offense is going to be limited this year. But until we know at least what the health status of Zach Ertz is going to be, I do think that the Cardinals are going to have to rely on Trey McBride for quite a bit of someone who can be out there to make plays. I would say that people are being a little too low on him right now. Cardinals, they spent a 2nd-round pick on him, highly drafted, very highly thought of guy. He's the one guy I would say that if you're looking for that, maybe not your tight end 1, maybe you're talking about throwing a dart at the board and finding a backup tight end or a tight end 2. He's the one guy who I think could boom a little bit more than some of the other guys that are ranked ahead of him.
I love it. Joseph, what say you?
Yeah, and you made some great points about 2 tight ends. I want to, add to that. And I've mentioned this gentleman before. Brett Coleman did a great video recently about the resurgence of the fullback. And one of the things he talked about is a lot of teams have players who aren't necessarily fullbacks, but they're like a big wide receiver or a tight end who play. They move, right? And they do certain things in the blocking that allow offenses to kind of open things up. It's a great video. Definitely check it out if you haven't.
Yep.
So in that situation, I could see, to me, it seems like McBride maybe fits that role a little bit more as that move tight end. So you could see them both on the field, right? Ertz in the slot, and then, that the receiving tight end. And then you're going to see McBride sometimes move around to do some blocking and things like that. So I think you'll see them both on the field in a lot of different ways. And one of them might be playing the role of a fullback in some of those moments. But from a fantasy perspective, because as we all know, there's real life football and fantasy football, and sometimes those things do and don't correlate in terms of the implications. In terms of how my draft strategy, I'm a little leery of going after the Cardinals tight ends from a fantasy perspective. Like, I typically go late on my tight end. I wait typically and see who's left. And McBride does fit the profile of the guy I look for as a tight end late in the draft. I always look for guys who are in their 2nd or 3rd year who were highly drafted, but struggled in that first year because someone mentioned earlier, tight ends typically don't pop their first year. They need extra time to develop because of all the blocking assignments and receiving assignments they have to learn. So I look for someone like McBride, who's coming into his 2nd year, has a pedigree as a 2nd-round draft pick, and could be a really good player moving forward, because then you're going to get really good value. But I am concerned because you've got Ertz, who's an established veteran. And, their offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing, comes from Cleveland. And Cleveland used, David Njoku, and they have a 2nd tight end they use. I was looking at his stats.
Cooper.
Anyway, it was Harrison Bryant. And, Njoku had 58 receptions for 628 yards. Harrison Bryant had 31 for 239. So, in this offense, there's room for 2 tight ends, right, to get some play. But from a fantasy perspective, I don't know if either one of them are consistently going to get enough that I feel good tethering myself to them. But again, for a dynasty league, I'm going to look at McBride. I'm going to try to get him if I can get him a little bit later, have him on my bench. If he pops this year, great. If not, I still like him as a future projection.
Well, this has been an amazing night. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say one last thing on Trey McBride. Trey McBride, as a younger tight end than Zach Ertz, he ended up actually surprising as far as for his yards after the catch per reception. He got almost as many yards after the catch as Trey McBride did on half the targets. Talking about Trey McBride having 117 yards after the catch, Zach Ertz 130 yards, both playing about the same number of games. Don't rule out that youth being a factor in terms of being able to get some additional, fantasy points potentially, especially if the Cardinals do end up being a team that targets the tight end a lot in more of those I think it's the yards per reception, the other types of fantasy leagues you're able to get where you get some of the PPR leagues. That would be the place I would look for him more than I would probably in a standard fantasy league.
Absolutely awesome. Well, listen, this has been an amazing night. And I just want to say really quickly to Agent H, it's been an honor to have you on, my friend. I was born and raised in Hialeah, and I used to fancy myself a little fast wide receiver. So I used to call myself the Thrill when I was younger. So this has been a true honor and one of those transcendent moments, like it's come full circle for me. So I really, really appreciate you having you on, my friend.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Do you have anything you wanted to plug or anything? Do you got any books or anything? Any promotional things you want to send out to anyone?
No, I'm too busy dealing with ambassadors, so I don't really have a chance to write books right now. Believe it or not, I'm actually I'm not even in the country right now. I'm I'm out of the country in the Caribbean, South Caribbean, in the Southern Caribbean, and a lot of people think that is fun in the sun, but I'm very close to Venezuela, and that's all I can say about that. But no, you can always follow me on Twitter under Randall Hill, and then also on Instagram Randall_Thrill_Hill. Hey, listen, sorry I wasn't. We weren't able to. I guess we had technical difficulties early on, but I did watch the game show that you guys were playing. I thought it was funny. And I did have Roy Green because I came in a year after Roy Green left. So yeah, I said, "Yo, say Roy Green. It's Roy Green. Trust me." But no, great show. Thanks for having me on for the time that I've been here. You have my number. You can contact me and call me whenever. I'll be more than happy to come back and talk a little bit more about the X's and O's. And also to talk about Professor,
yes.
If when I'm not traveling, I would definitely like to come out and talk to your students about sociology and how it has helped prepare me for the career that I have right now, which is a great career, federal agent. I get retired in 2 years, so I have an NFL pension, NFL 401k, government pension, government 401k, and Social Security, and it's been a great ride, and it was all thanks to sociology.
Awesome. I love hearing that. I'll follow you on Twitter, and we've got a criminology program that would love to have you talk to their students.
Okay, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm going to disappear so I can go save the world.
Thank you, Agent H. We appreciate you. It's been a great night tonight. We appreciate having you in. It's been amazing. And look at that. What a connection we made right there, too. We're going to go talk to your class. Got to love it. He's doing the superhero thing still, so you got to love it. All right, guys, we appreciate you. Thank you again for coming in, and we are out.